Money on my mind, gotta hustle and grind. Financial literacy always on my mind. I'm stacking knowledge, no time to waste. Gotta invest smart, gotta keep up the pace. I'm reading books, learning all the tricks, studying the market, making calculated picks. I'm saving up my dough, watching it grow. No more wasting money on things I don't really know. Financial smarts, that's my new swag. Investing wisely, no more burning cash, I'm building wealth. $1 at a time, going from broke to living the life that's prime.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Reckless Ray Dinero, and we are here for Future Financial Strategies, where we're going to talk about all things financial strategy related. We're going to talk about the tools that you can use to make your life better, to make yourself wealthier, to make yourself more financially efficient. Over here in the Wolfpack, I like to focus on maximizing what we have before going to chase the bag, because high income does not equate to wealth. There's a lot of people that are living check to check, making over six figures. A lot of people lifestyle creep as they chase the bag on up to where your situation never actually changes. You still got to go to sleep at night with that stress of, how am I going to pay these bills? I have to go to these jobs. We are looking to eliminate those thought processes, those emotions, and those things by using math and finance together to make things as efficient as possible. So, understanding that a lot of us are starting from different points, I'm going to go back. These next few weeks are going to be some remedial episodes. I'll be uploading some randoms, episodes that I've already previously recorded that I got sitting on the hard drive to get those over to this channel that belong over on this channel. But we're going to go back through, and I'm going to give my take on a few of the strategies that I have implemented. And we are starting off with one of the main ones that I am focusing on right now. We're going with current, because obviously Bitcoin holds a spot in my heart. Everything I do is related to putting myself in a position to, as efficiently as possible, acquire as much Bitcoin as I can get my hands on. But one of the things that I wanted to do, because I went through this phase where I was consistently focusing on chasing the bag. And I was like, I heard the gurus, they were like, you got to chase the bag. You got to get to the bag. You got to get your income up. Your income's the problem. Blah, 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 blah. Be stressed. You're not making enough income. Everyone's making six figures, but you apparently, even though a very small percentage of the populace actually makes six figures. So I was out there just working constantly. And by working constantly, I mean, I'm putting in 70+ hour weeks between my career job. And then through part of it, I was doing side hustles. So I Ubered, I DoorDash what was it? It wasn't Instacart. It came out before door dashing. Postmates. I did Postmates for a little bit. And then I ended up settling into Ubering, which I did enjoy that job. That side hustle, if you would. I didn't like touching people's food. So like Postmates, I did that for about a month and was like, I'm not doing that. Set up my Uber account and started doing that. And to be honest, it worked. But I always come back to, at what cost? So I still had a small semblance of a social life, because like I had my Ubering set up to where it was like every free waking moment that wasn't me doing something, I was basically either at work, at the gym, or in that car. The drawbacks were, you're just constantly working, and it kind of sucks. But at the point in time, I absolutely needed to do that because I was in the midst of a mess, like a financial catastrophe. And in the process of working through that, I was like, the only other option that I had at that point in time to be able to continue to buy Bitcoin and get the debt that I had accrued. Because like I had spiraling debt. Like it wasn't strategic debt. It was like I'd spent a bunch of money. I'd been managing all this debt, and it was high time to start working on a way to have it handled. So the only option that I had at that point in time was to just start working all the time. So necessary evil, does that tool work? Side hustle tool? Yes, it does. The issue is you're constantly exhausted, even though I was taking time to like have social activity during that time period. It just wasn't, I just didn't necessarily feel good. Like I was dialed in and I was working constantly, but I was just constantly a little bit tired, constantly a little bit stressed, constantly having to be meticulous on my car. I had to make sure my car maintenance was like on point, which you should do anyways, but it was a have to at that point, which made it, for me, the have to part of things is the part of it that makes me not want to do it. It also adds an element of stress, because now I'm like, I got to make sure I get up 3 hours before work so I can go get in this car and get some Ubering done before I go into the office. And then after work, I'm like, well, I got to Uber until it's time for me to go to bed. And it's just like you're working up until bed, and it's just constantly. It was very stressful. It was a very semi-stressful time. It was gratifying though, because I was seeing that debt melt away. I was actually starting to accumulate some assets. That was when I first got my financial affairs and looked at what was going on and was like, yo, I gotta do something about this. And so seeing those debts come off, seeing my portfolio grow, seeing my net worth get close to zero, because at that point it was very much in the negative, and then flipping into the positive where I was actually worth something. And that's after you factor all your debts and all your assets. It felt good. So like it was very motivating, but it was like the strain on my body and my mental capacity. Like I was constantly in a state of zapped. Like I was not able to make the best decisions. And I don't care what these gurus say. If you're only sleeping for 5 hours and you're working till you go to bed, your decision-making faculties are not as acute as somebody who is not having to grind in that same capacity, because there's different ways to grind. And so after I went through that phase, I started trying to get a little bit smarter, not fully understanding what I needed to do, but understanding that working straight up until bed probably wasn't going to be the best outcome for me. Like I was like, I don't want to do that. Like that's just going to wear me out, because my job's very physical. It's also very cognitive. So there were drawbacks. Like I was a little bit worse at my job. I was a little bit worse at my job. I enjoyed the Ubering part, but it was still like, it gave me some social ability, because during the week, until the weekend rolled around, and it was like one day on the weekend, I saw nobody that wasn't paying me money. So, but Ubering gave me that social interaction, got to talk to people, because people would get in the car and I would try to not talk and they would talk to me. So I ended up having conversations with people. It was pretty cool. I did enjoy it. But the expense was my brain capacity. Like I couldn't really see anything out of like the three things that I was doing at that time, which was Ubering, paying off debt, and buying Bitcoin. That was it. Like beyond that, like I was like, I couldn't really have any extra capacity to do anything else, which was limiting, because now everything is physically me going to get a check, going to get checks that are highly taxed as well, because 1099, you're taxed to hell. Just as an individual, which was how I was doing it, which, there's something to be said about the efficacy of that, but also my W-2, which is also the worst taxed. So it was just that form of income wasn't the quadrant that I wanted to be in. Those were employee and self-employed quadrant, and realistically, I wasn't making or having enough expenses on Uber to really get any type of tax write-off besides the standard. So like you're just paying the extra tax on that. So you're getting clipped on the back end in taxes for that, because you're in the highest tax brackets. And, shifting over to business owner, that wasn't really an opportunity for me at the time, because I didn't have any way to any extra bandwidth to do anything else. I was dialed in on work. I was working a lot of hours. I was Ubering. The base of the excess hours that I had left were spent in the car actively Ubering. So it was just a lot of sweat off my own brow. And one of the things I learned was I knew that already, but I definitely had the capacity to do it. I didn't want to. I wanted to work smarter. I wanted passive income. And now looking forward, like, I didn't know that these opportunities existed, but now that I know, as you know better, you do better. Does that mean that I wouldn't hop back in that car and Uber if I had to, or pick up a side gig if I had to, or if I saw that that was the most efficient way to make sure that I was doing everything within my power to advance the situation that I was trying to get to? Absolutely, I would. But I would only do that as a have to now. I enjoy pushing myself to figure out how to get more passive income or maximize the income that I have, or utilize the income that I have currently to its most efficient means. And I'd rather put my brain capacity to that, because to date, it has yielded more income, more wealth, more money than getting in the car and Ubering and just going and grinding it out physically. Because now that I have some money that I can throw around, like a little bit of leeway, it adds opportunity. So now I can put that brain capacity into sorting out situations from a cognitive state using my mind versus using my body to generate more income. And I like that. I like those things better. So what we're going to talk about today is starting out in high yield dividends. Now, I'm not talking, this is, again, not financial advice. I am talking and telling my story. This is for documentary purposes only. This is what happens when Reckless Rate and Arrow discovered how I discovered what I'm looking at and where I'm at currently. And then we'll also look at, from a position standpoint, what I might have done different. Now, moving into the space of high yield dividends, like, what are they? So there's a lot of channels, there's a lot of people, I'm sure they'll come at my neck, because there's a lot of guys out there that are talking about, oh, high yield dividend ETFs are a scam. It's this, you can do it yourself, you can da 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 da. And I'm like, yes, you. And so the first thing I'm going to do is clear up everything from that perspective, because I like shutting down the arguments early, because, like, if you want to have the conversation with Reckless Rate and Arrow, I would like to do that on my live stream. I always am willing to have people up and have the conversation, but you better come with math and not your feelings. Those are key important things, and receipts, because I keep mine. They're very public. We do the portfolio update the first Monday of every month. I actually show the physical portfolio, and then I show the app that I use to track the portfolio. So for this episode, we are going to use the tracking app, because I show my actual portfolio in Charles Schwab every single month. There's not a month that you don't get to see it, and you get to see it all, including the stuff that I'm not even talking about. Like, it's all there. So with that said, when I'm talking about my positions, the total return, how I use things, I'm not talking about this from a religious perspective, because I don't see these products as a growth tool, because they are not a growth tool. That's the first thing that I want to lay out here. This is for income purposes only. What you do with said income will decide your financial future. If you are a bad money manager, this space will destroy you. If you are a good money manager, this is a magic bullet. Me personally, I'm a pretty darn good money manager. Just saying. Like, if I had, like I've said it multiple times, I was like, the only reason I'm not rich is because I don't have the income. Like, I know what to do with the money now. Like, I'm not check to check. Like, my financial situation is straight. The other thing is, even if you don't like this, that doesn't make me wake up any broker tomorrow. That doesn't stop my dividend income coming in next week, next month, next year. So having the conversation from a logic, reason, and math-based perspective, where we're talking about efficacy and strategy, I'm all for that. I don't care how you feel about the tool. I really don't. because I don't have a feeling about the tool. I don't think this is the bee's knees. This is one of many tools that I use within my financial strategy. This is the one that I'm currently focused on right now, because within this window of time, it's going to allow me to set up some other things. And we're going to talk about that. So as I bring up the first, we're going to start off from a historical standpoint from the first one that I touched. I don't currently hold this anymore, but so there's 3 companies that we heavily talk about in this space. There's Roundhill, YieldMax, and Defiance. Now, shout out to my YieldMax people, because I am knee deep in YieldMax. It's the majority of my portfolio holdings, and we are balancing that out. Reason being, these products do different things. So how do high yield ETFs work? High yield dividend ETFs work. They are doing covered calls, actively trading in the market on specific assets. Now, those assets change. There's single stock covered call ETFs. There are collective covered call ETFs. There are market sector covered call ETFs, such as the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the Russell 2000. It's pick your flavor. One of the things that you should probably be, that I didn't know when I got into this space, was educated on the underlying asset. Actually, I did know that because my entry into the space was actually via Roundhill. How did I find this? A buddy of mine, shout out to Razik, and this is the importance of having a great network. He is a trader through and through. He loves it. And I understand one of the kickbacks. Oh, Ray, you could reckless rate and arrow. You could do this yourself. I don't want to. It's that simple. And as I said before, there's a price to be paid for what you don't want to do. And that price in this case is the fees to have a broker and a hedge fund and people that do this all day, every day. That's their career. Do it for me. And I'm fine paying that fee, because in the grand scheme of things, that's one less thing I have to do, because I'm still working a lot. I have a business that I'm trying to help, people I'm trying to lead, place I'm trying to go. In the physical world, I do not have the time to sit in front of a computer all day gaming the market. I'm not good at that. Next, it's risky. I come from crypto. This is an order of magnitude less risk than anything that I'm doing in the crypto space. Just what it is. So it's risky to you. It is not risky to me. Secondly, I just need income. This is a super efficient form of income to have coming in every month. This has already destroyed what my target goal was for Ubering. And I was Ubering during the slow times of day because of the timing. I didn't want to do weekend nights. I didn't want people vomiting in my car. So I was on a trajectory where I was like, yo, I'm like trying to make basically $100 to $200 a week in the off hours. So I get first thing, twilight, early in the morning, usually an airport run and an airport run back. And it's, you're shooting to make $25-$50 a day, few days a week, totaling out between $100 and $2 for the week. I'm already over $1,000 a month in my dividend portfolio. Now, the upfront capital, which we're going to look at, I'm at about $20,000 totally invested in that portfolio. So I did, obviously you have to have starting capital. One of the things that's pretty awesome is that most brokerages have is a drip feature. And what's drip? It's direct reinvestment plan. That means that every time you get paid your dividend for that stock, they will buy a fractionalized share of stock. Now, if you're in the big boy brokerages, it's the only way you can buy fractional shares. But it'll compound because now you're getting your dividends slice off that fractional share. So it can start building up. And there's a bunch of different methods for getting into this. For me, I literally took some bulk money. I started leveraging my credit cards, which I know they'll tell you that's super dangerous. But if I've got at 0% for 12 months with a 4% kicker and I'm actively paying the credit card back, it's not a risk for me because I could always sell the underlying asset off. Now, I haven't seen any of these go to zero in a year, but you know what? Some of the crypto projects that I was in, some of the stuff that I was doing to generate income within that space went to zero overnight. So the prospects here of something that I'm actively managing to get semi-passive income, because I actively manage my portfolio. There's plenty of people that don't. They just let it stack in and on itself and just run drip the whole time. The system that I've worked out for myself is I drip up to a certain point, and then once it hits a certain dollar amount value, because my portfolio I do on cash value position. So for me, a fully seated position, and I'm in phase 1. We're still working out phase 2. I've got my plans, but best laid plans, so you get punched in the face. Currently, phase 1 is the plan that I'm actively working on. Phase 2 is going to have the numbers adjust a little bit, but right now, a fully loaded position is $10,000 for me. At which I don't invest anymore. That goes towards paying back debt, managing the debt that we've taken out that's on the portfolio right now. Or a piece of it is also taken to go towards Bitcoin, which is my future. It's basically like my retirement fund. And a little bit goes back into the position in and of itself to fuel it. Basically, when I get paid out, if it's not a drip if it's not currently under the drip part of the rule set that I've got, I'll buy 1 share of whatever the underlying asset is. There's another one that I do though to secure my portfolio in and of itself. And that's one that I just have constantly dripping, because this portfolio that I'm using for my income portfolio has margin on it. So I can pull money out when I need to. And it basically functions like a credit card, because like I can pull margin to get into my bank account. I can pull margin to buy stocks and what it does, it just drives your cash balance in your account negative. So that means that everything that's coming in just pays back that first until that zeroes out. And after that, you're back down to zero, and you can put money. So even when I transfer money in, it just goes to pay down the margin. So basically, I look at it like a credit card. I'm not utilizing it in the fashion that it will be utilized once I get phase 1 done and can start actually trying to move my stuff over to actually live out of that margin account. As far as my everyday expenses and the stuff that I'm paying out every month, that's one of the goals. But I also buy a share of QQQY, which is a solidifier. It's something that just drips into itself indefinitely. I'm not planning on using that income for anything besides just buying more QQQY. So that'll probably be indefinitely dripping. And as the portfolio grows, so does that margin. It's my stabilizer for the portfolio, because the NASDAQ is more stable than any of the high volatility stuff that I'm into. And it generates good income, and it's a weekly payer. So every week it's growing. So my margin is growing a little bits at a time every week. And then the rest, like I also use it to fund my long-term holds. So one of the other rules that we have instilled now is I get 1 share of MicroStrategy out of my payout every month. And we're just stacking that up. I also buy 1 share of MicroStrategy every paycheck. So when my W-2 check comes in, I buy a share of MicroStrategy. So that's 2 shares, about 3 to 4 shares a month, depending on how the payouts roll. So those are a couple of things. And as you can see, it's branching out. And like after the debt's paid off, after this lump sum of debt that we've got accrued right now are paid off, we'll be able to focus more money into the long-term positions, because I'm not planning on just having a bunch of revolving debt outside of that margin account. But the margin account really is going to be utilized for core expense. Once I get to my core expense level, I'll start tapping that margin account for that specifically. But for right now, we're working our way towards using that to specifically target chunking down the debt. We want to get chunks of debt down at this point. So that's what we're doing. I found out about this from a buddy of mine, like I was saying, shout out to Razik, about YBTC, because when they announced the Bitcoin ETFs, I was like, yeah, I'm going to get in the Bitcoin ETFs. And Razik was like, yo, I found a couple of things where they're talking about building some income. Like it's income generating. I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, they're doing calls on some of these ETFs. And I was like, you can't do that. And he was like, no, check this out. So I found Round Hill's YBTC. They came out shortly after, around the same time as the Bitcoin ETFs. So this was the first high yield dividend ETF that I found. And I bought some. And originally I was going to make the core of my portfolio YBTC, but the payouts on it were a little bit too volatile for me. Like for starting out, because I was just getting into this space, just learning about it. And the ETF in itself was priced a little bit high. And the payouts were kind of feast or famine payouts. And I'm not going to lie, I was like, I'm because like the great months were great. And I'm like, yo, like this is really like fast tracking it. But then like the bad months where the payouts weren't that great were awful. And I was like, oh, so like you need to have like a bare minimum amount of, because like the range in here is very, very wide reaching. But generally speaking, it was about $1 was like the minimum, like when you're scraping bottom on YBTC at the time. And so I was like, oh, so I would need like 500, 600 shares for the initial position for what I was trying to do. And I didn't have the money for it at the time. And I'm building out, and like as I'm building out, because like I'm also needing to utilize this I'm utilizing it partially to manage the debt that I took out to open some of these positions. So I was like, okay, I need something a little bit more consistent. I don't like these wide swings on price. So I ended up going over into some other ones. But as you can see, like we'll scroll through here and make myself smaller. Actually, you know what? Let's just take myself off the screen. Okay, so you guys can still hear me. You can see the whole thing. I got this set up right now. And as you can see, there's a bunch of different ones. Like they have a Magnificent 7 that's got levered longs on it it's a 2x ETF. They got Nerd, that's a video game ETF. And these are all covered call strategies. Some of them pay weekly. So you have XDTE, QTDTE, and RDTE that all pay weekly. They pay on Fridays. And then what do we have here? So I think, and so like they have MagQ, they have Kings, Dividend Monarchs. That's another one. They have Weed, which is a cannabis ETF where they're playing that market too. Global Luxury, Lux. They have luxury ETFs. So you can find ETFs to match, even have sports betting. Amazing. You want to get international? They got China Dragons. Another one. And these all pay either weekly or monthly. So as you're getting into this, you can find things that you gravitate for. Like me, I have a Bitcoin thesis. I think Bitcoin's either going to $1 million or $0, and I don't think it's going to zero. So I'm going to get to the next screen. What I ended up doing was my current strategy. I'm a big yield maxer. Now, Yield Max has a bunch of them also. They have Tesla, and they give you the distribution rates on these. They have Apply. These are all single assets. They have one for NVIDIA. They have one for Apple. They have Amazon in here. They have Facebook, Google, Coinbase, which is one of mine. And see, I'm in a little bit of the danger, not the danger zone, but it's high risk. But I understand the cryptocurrency space, so I know what's getting ready to happen for the next year. They've got Disney. They've got Netflix. So as I'm going through these, you can see like the distribution rates are astronomically high. Why? Because these are playing in the market. This is not about growth of the underlying ETF. It is about paying you money. And that's one of the things that people don't understand. And it's people who are really into the space as well. Like there's a bunch of people who I see all the time. I see you guys on Reddit and they're like, oh, well, the value's not going up on the ETF, like they're going to nav out to zero. And I'm like, well, I mean, I haven't seen any nav to zero personally, at least not the ones that I'm in. but it's about the income and what you're doing with the income. So if you're getting paid out, like, that's factored in. And a lot of people get caught up because a lot of the people in the dividend space that aren't necessarily high yield dividend space that have 6-figure portfolios that produce $100 a month, and they think that they're like, that's great, and I'm just gonna, but like, they care about the appreciation of the underlying asset, which I understand. I get it. But that, for me, that falls under long term and not under income. If you care about the growth, that's a long term, it's a long-term asset that happens to pay you money. We're talking past each other. Those are two different mindsets and two different mentalities, because I will have some stuff in my long-term portfolio that is a stock that grows, that also pays. Right? That does not belong in my income portfolio just because it pays a dividend. Like, that's a kicker. You care that the stock grows. You want the value of the company to go up. It is not solely an income purchase if you're trying to grow the underlying asset as well. In the high yield dividend space, we do not care. We are money managers. We are strategists. We are going to take that income and we'll make the growth ourselves. Like, we'll go invest in the growth, and then we'll catch up with you later. But like, right now, we need the income. That's what this specific portfolio and this specific strategy is about. So as we go through here, we might have to be having to add some PayPal. PayPal's doing good. They got Square in here doing great. Moderna, nice. And then AAIY, I don't know what that is. But then they have the YMAX, which pays weekly, which is a cumulative. And then this is, so we'll go ahead and jump right into the one that I'm currently heavy in. So this was my first position. This position is secured. It has over $10,000 in it now, and it's also the first one that flipped positive for me. It's carrying the portfolio pretty hard right now, which is MicroStrategy. I'm a huge fan of MicroStrategy. Cannot afford the stock because it was expensive before the split, and now it's already working its way back up to being expensive. I was trying to hopefully scoop up 10 shares under $200. Doesn't look like that's going to happen, but we're going to go ahead and buy till that target goal for our long-term portfolio. I am a huge fan of MicroStrategy and what they're doing within the cryptocurrency space. As I was in the space before MicroStrategy, I saw them come bust into the space. I saw them go from skeptical to the ultimate advocate, and I love it. So the way that they've set up their plan has also affected the way that I do my finances now, and I have set up my life plan for my financial strategy. The distribution chart, we're looking at April when I got in, it was $4.12. Like, we're having some pretty hefty distributions. I had a target amount allocation of $10,000. This has done some running up, so we have been doing some sell-off, some scalping on it to move into some other positions. Our current position that we're working on is Coney, which is another yield max single stock ETF. And then my last one is likely going to be Tesla, which we're currently working on Tesla, but I'm almost partially thinking about switching it out with PayPal at this point. But I don't know that we'll do that. I also have a position in Ulti, which I use to reinvest specifically into my portfolio to add some extra income to make sure it's still going and doing what it needs to do. They have the inverse of Tesla, which is Crash, which also pays out monthly. Now that's a hedge against Tesla. That's shorting Tesla, which is pretty interesting. There's a lot of different stuff that you can do in here. Like, they got one that shorts Nvidia, another interesting one. Alibaba, they got one for that. Let's see here. Where is Tesla? So Tesla has been a great payer for me, which is why it's my third position. But I want to get my crypto narrative positions done first. So we'll probably be looking at maybe adding PayPal into this. Tesla's third in line. I've got over 100 shares. I got over 100 shares of it just to get it started so that we could get the drip going on it. And normally that's what I try to do. I try to rush my way to 100, like 50 to 100 shares, turn the drip on, and I don't turn the drip off until we get a $5,000 nugget in there, because at that point I can start utilizing that to help manage the debt. It's generally at a point to where I'm getting a little bit of money off of it, enough to matter when it goes into the collective pool, and I'm just chunking away at the debt throughout the month. The third week of the month is a big week of the month, and we'll talk about that shortly. But before we do that, I want to jump into the last, but definitely not least, our Defiance, which is another great leveraged. They've got leveraged ETFs that are monthly players. So this MSTX could potentially, I mean, I'm going to have to do some research on this, but I like the 1.7x long MicroStrategy ETF. I might actually switch out Misty with MSTX. I'm going to do some research and take a look at what type of income that's generating, but I like that for the next year. I'm not going to lie. Like, the crypto bull run's going to be a thing. MicroStrategy strategy is dominating the market. They are outperforming all the stocks in the S&P 500, and I love it. And these types of products give you a little bit of edge if you're actually long these products. Now, I am actively buying MicroStrategy as well. So, like, this is an additional kicker. I do not want, however, I mean, honestly, I'm kind of wondering if I do want, like, to be overly exposed on Microsoft. I'm overly exposed on Bitcoin already. Oh boy, this could be interesting, because like this could be something where I might reallocate my portfolio. I'm going to do some research today, but I might be looking to reallocate my portfolio and do double Misty and then Coney for position number 3. And add that and just ride that. Cause like, I really am an advocate, and like I do like my money where my mouth is. Like, I'm totally fine being completely overexposed and completely dead wrong if that's the case when it comes to Bitcoin, because MicroStrategy is advocating and bringing Bitcoin mainstream. Michael Saylor is leading that ship. He ran out all the people who didn't want who didn't share the same ideology, and was like, yo, like, this is going to be converted to a Bitcoin company. Once he got it, he got it. And I think I'm willing to bet on that. I think I'm willing to ride some income on that. Now, the MSTX might come off of the core of the income portfolio after the bull run, because there's going to be some drawbacks. There's going to be some form of drawback. We got to figure out what the market's going to look like now that the big dollars are here. But I'm thinking I might just have that core nucleus of the portfolio be all Bitcoin related. Now, another one that I'm actively using already, that I've got the drip turned on that I've recently added, is QQQY. That is the solidifier for the portfolio. I'm going to let that run up indefinitely. That's a weekly payer. You also have WDTE. So like this is the reason you have to do your own research, because there's so many of these products that are similar, and they have different. So like, there's different pay windows, there's different strategies in the approach. Like, it's not like all of these get payouts the exact same. Like, some do perform better than others. So there's a lot of research to be done, but these 3 companies are the core nucleus of like what I'm looking at. And I'm liking it. I am liking it. So far, I've had wonderful results. So let's talk about the results. We're going to jump into Snowball Analytics. And again, I don't feel like I need to give receipts, considering every month at the beginning of the month, you get receipts. So like, you get to see the Charles Schwab that backs this up, that validates that like, oh, I didn't just make this up. These trades are in here. It's the same as the Charles Schwab. The shares are the same number as the Charles Schwab. the assessment and the value do change. But the important part is, because this reads different than Charles Schwab, my brokerage account is up to date live. This is not up to date live because I am using the free version currently. I will have a referral down in the description for those of you who want to give it a shot. You can get live updates. It's got a lot of other very useful tools within here. And I will be opting over to the pay version as soon as my portfolio hits a certain point, because I'm going to start utilizing this a lot more because it's helping me project out where I need to be. First thing we're looking at, what type of goals do we have? So at present, I am 30% to my target goal of an annualized 60,000. Why is that? Because if I'm not going to work and I don't have to go to work, I only need $60,000 a year. I really do. Like, to cover this, my existence, and what I have right now, I'm more than happy with $60,000 a year. And that's also including reinvestment in the portfolio and being able to invest as well. So it's not just, hey, this is just a magic arbitrary number. Like, people don't need as much money as they think they do to leave the workforce. Everybody tells you got to have millions of dollars to leave the workforce. You actually just need income. Case in point, like, if your income's replaced, then you don't have to go there. Now, what we're going to do, our first target is 60,000. Once we get to that point, that's my work optional / retirement checkout. Now, what I'm going to do, most likely, because I'm not the type of person who needs to not work, I just don't want to have to. So after we hit that target of being able to stay home, I might take a long vacation. Not going to lie. I might go do something to celebrate. Not going to lie. But the other thing that I'm going to do is continue to work for at least 1 to 2 more years to double that, to get those. And I'm just going to stack that portfolio out to an insane level where it's so far past what I need to do that me existing in America is solidified. Now, once we are solidified in America, like, because after that point, like, if I can just build this portfolio up and throw $120,000 into it over 2 years, which actually would be more than that, because if I just dripped it for a year, it would compound itself over that time. Now, mind you, we're going to be technically in what will be the new cryptocurrency, Bitcoin bear market. So one of the other reasons I'm not going to quit my job is because the core nucleus of my portfolio is based on my thesis on Bitcoin. And as the portfolio runneth up, I will be scalping and moving those into this phase 2 position, which will not be Bitcoin related. There'll be more stable individual stocks that I think are going to continue to do well after doing some research, and other positions. But come the bear market, I've got to see what the income looks like, because it could change. The other thing is, during that bear market, I'm going to be rampantly trying to accumulate more Bitcoin, which, again, this portfolio will come in super useful for, because it's going to be generating income. But we also need to see, like, what that bear market's going to look like. We also need to see how long the bull market's going to run. We're also going to have to see if we want to make some adjustments in the core of the portfolio for the eventual fall off. Now, if we're scalping the whole time, it shouldn't. My portfolio, as far as the income portfolio goes, I'm not worried about it. But the thing that's interesting is, this is showing that, like, as it sits right now, this goal is achievable in 1 year if I didn't utilize this money at all to manage any of my debt. If I didn't use it for debt pay down, and I was doing that and adding to it, I could be at my goal within 1 year of my target. Now, 2032 is if I just turn this on and just let it drip itself with no more investment whatsoever. At 2032, this would hit this target on its own with the way that we're getting paid right now. The other thing, that the reason I use snowball analytics, though, it's the important thing that Charles Schwab doesn't do, and most investment platforms don't do. They don't give you the total profit, because I've been getting paid And it doesn't factor in your payments on Charles Schwab. So like Snowball Analytics, there's another one called Dividend Tracker that they do the calculation of what you've been paid versus like what you invested. And as you can see, we can look at the positions in here. MicroStrategy is the lion's share of my portfolio, followed by Ulti. 500 shares of Ulti, that was my target. It's an actual share amount, and this is for reinvestment purposes only. This keeps the portfolio, make sure that we're doing well. So while I'm sitting right at about almost at 1,500, when we get to 1,500, basically, because Ulti's goal is to be at about $1 a dividend per share. That's what this options play is supposed to do. Ulti gets reinvested into whatever needs to be invested in. So like right now we're looking at Coney, but this might be changing to the Defiance MSTX. We might be switching to that because I do like that premise a lot from a strategic perspective. And then Tesla, which we have 103 shares of, might be dropping out, and we'll be replacing that with Coney, and Coney will be on the back end. We're going to see. I mean, we will find out because we'll be waiting to get that Coney payment. I mean, we're going to sit in here and sit on it up until that point for sure. We'll take the NAV hit, but we might be selling down Coney to Tesla's current payout, and then bringing it back up third and focusing on getting the MSTX to get that leverage on top of the Misty payout, because Misty has been doing great for us so far. I just got to do some research and look at what the payouts are going. We've got, rounding it out last, we got the Defiance NASDAQ 100. We got 4 shares of that currently stacking in on itself. But as we can see, for Misty, we are up 23.5% total. That's awesome. And that's because the underlying value has gone up, which is also super awesome. Not expected, but super awesome. The Ulti, we were buying down. We're down 1.49% right now in gain on that, which is awesome. Like, that's good too. I'm an avid buy the dip person. So when the prices go down on things, after we went through Bloody Monday, I bought through it with this. You know what else I bought? Crypto, because I'm used to buying dips on things that I know aren't going away, or that I don't believe are going away. Because I can't say that I know, because no one knows, but stuff that I don't believe is going away. So I continued to buy down. Coin, we are way down on coin still, but it's working its way back up. I started buying coin high, but that's the reason I also dollar cost average, because just like with Ulti, we'll buy this down at some point. Tesla also down, but again, what are we doing? What are we doing with that? Like, it's a question of how are we navigating through the market? And like, if you're dollar cost averaging, then as these numbers fluctuate, especially if it's down, you just buy more, and it brings the average down. That's how I got Ulti down to 1.49%. And I understand a lot of people who buy these at launch, they catch that NAV hit, or the underlying asset isn't going to spike. But like my crypto related ones, I do believe that those underlying assets are going to go up, because we're in a bull run. So like, I got an insight into what's coming, and I'm basing my narrative on that. So let me bring myself back up to the screen. Boop. And when I'm asked about what questions I would do now, how would I have changed this? I would have just started with the Misty position. I think like me flopping around and like moving around, and like, obviously I'm making some tweaks. Like, I've decided that we're making some tweaks on this actively. So that doesn't really bother me as much as having started out, because I went through some dips on YBTC and I didn't like them. So it was just the understanding of what I needed to utilize this for. And like when I first started, it was just income and just seeing how this worked. And I didn't have like a direct plan. And now that I have a plan, I can make tweaks of efficiency versus just buying stuff. Cause like when YBTC dropped, I was just buying stuff and I just bought it. There was no plan. I hadn't sat down and had a heart-to-heart with myself to see what I needed to do, what I was looking at. I didn't have a target amount of money that I was trying to make set so that I could see if we were anywhere close to that. Nothing to be marching towards. And so after going through all that, I would have started with Misty from YieldMax. That's where I would have started. I would have still put in Ulti. I actually might have started with Ulti and just, if I would have started with Ulti, I probably would have went and got 1,000 shares. Honestly, I think that's what my goal is going to be for this, because like I keep wanting to add in like a secondary something or other to kick back in, and I'm thinking about it, but I'm not sure. But starting over, just the way that my brain works, I would have done the avalanche method, which is basically you pick a position, you drive it up till it gets to a certain amount, and then you take those dividends and roll it into the next position. And I started off trying to do that, and I just wasn't successful. But it probably would have been the most efficient way for me to do this. And I would have got that core amount of Ulti, and then I would have started diverting my paycheck money and the Ulti money into buying as much Misty as possible. I would have still gone with the $10,000 caps, and then when it dips down, you buy the dip, buy it back up to $10,000, and then when it runs up and it gets over $10,000, you scalp the profits and roll those into other projects that are performing less well, or the next position that you're going for. And the next position, my second position, would have been MSTX, and the issue is I don't have the time to do the research that I should be doing. Like I could get like a little glimmer. I hear a little bit about some stuff. And then within the process of that, I either follow up on it or I don't. And so this is the reason I'm constantly making content about these things, because if I didn't do that, I would have never found that. Like this, also sharing the knowledge and helping other people along their journeys as well helps solidify me. So like I'm actively learning while we're doing this, and making the tweaks. So by the next month's portfolio update, we're going to have those adjustments made, and you'll get to see it within the Charles Schwab account so that there's receipts, and then you'll get to see the results of that and what we're projecting out. Because the more I look at this, the more excited I get. It makes it hard for me to spend money on anything, because I'm like, I could make more income. Like I'm like, I could make more income and just buy that later and then just keep running this bag up. Because the way that this works is like, this might be a window in time. And I always say that. They're like, oh, well, are you going to be able to do this forever? And it's like, maybe not. But maybe I make a few $100,000 and put that into my long-term holds and Bitcoin, and then I'm just rich. So and the thing is, it's gonna be funny, and it's gonna be really interesting, because I am of the belief that at this point in the game, I will be retired before I become a millionaire. Like we'll be recording this millionaire journey, and I'm gonna be work optional / retired, basically just going and getting the hookup on some insurance. And like after it gets to a certain point to where I can get like the best insurance that I can get or close to it, I might not go to work at all. I might just like do projects around my house and just buy rental properties or start doing rehabs or something like that, or something that I want to do that pays way less money. I don't know. But I know that I will have those options, I'm pretty sure, before I'm a millionaire. Which is going to be really interesting, because it's counter the paradigm. They tell you need like X amount of millions of dollars, and then you got to eat those assets up. You got to sell them off and pay taxes. in order to subsist yourself. And hopefully you saved up enough millions of dollars to stay out of the rat race. And it's like, or you could just generate income. I'm like, if we have the tool and the option, then like, why wouldn't we do that? And then you use that to fund your investments, and then you can do that. Like, I don't know. I don't like selling stuff. I don't like selling stuff. So I'm probably going to be rolling out some more targeted portfolios, because I'm probably going to use this. I'm going to use this strategy to start paying off my mortgage early, to start attacking my principal early. That's gonna be a thing. So we'll be having one of these portfolios spinning up that we'll be talking about. That's like, yo, like this is specifically for this purpose. I'm really considering spinning up a side portfolio to make a car payment. Be like, yo, like this is what we pay on the car. This is our window of opportunity. This is how much I can afford to pay on a car, and just drip it until I'm ready to go make that purchase. And then once I make that purchase, it's like, here we go. Like now we've got a portfolio. That's the car payment. And even if it's literally just the car payment, it's not me making the car payment. And so like, these are things to think about. We're going to continue to have conversations about this. I really like where this is going. I like how this is forming out, because like now we're able to make projections for next year. I don't have to go beg for a raise. I can give myself a raise. Like this year, we're probably gave ourselves about, I'd say somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000 raise. Next year, we're looking at $17,000 raise. And then the year after that is going to be another raise on top of that. It's just, this is going to keep ever growing, because I'd rather place my money here and live out of this pool and be like, yo, I got X amount monthly. And that's just what I'm working with. And just put all the income in here. Like that's going to be the eventual goal, is all my income will filter through this portfolio and get disseminated to everywhere else. That's going to be that's my end game. And I'm looking to hopefully be in that space, hopefully at some point next year, because as soon as these debts are cleared, we're going to have a full reset, because then I'll also be able to pull out more debt and do this again. Probably going to have a little bit different strategy than what we did, because when we originally started this, those of you who follow me over on Reckless Rate and Arrow know that I was under duress. But next time, after we clear this up, we know how to do it even better. We've got even better plans, even better strategies. So with that said, we're going to end this episode, because I try to keep these at under an hour. Normally these videos will be between 15 minutes and an hour, depending on how far down the rabbit hole I go. Till next week, people. This is your boy Reckless Rate and Narrow. Thank you for tuning in to Future Financial Strategies. Until next time, people. Peace.
Money on my mind. Yeah. Focus, got no time for games. Nah. I don't play it, I'm all about that financial literacy. Investing in my future, building generational wealth. Dollar bills, they be calling my name, but I ain't chasing fame, I'm chasing change. Learn the game, now I'm playing it smart. Putting my money to work, it's an art. I'm stacking paper, building my own empire. No more living check to check, I'm getting higher. Investing in stocks, real estate, and more. Gotta secure the bag, that's what I came for.